Hi, I'm Bodie Pendis, and today we're going to talk about building cabinets. So whether it's case goods or cabinets or whatever types of cabinetry you want to build, what we have done is built for a neighbor of mine some lower file cabinets, some upper storage cabinets with shelves. But a question came, what if we need more drawer space? What if we need a few more things? So we built drawer boxes to fit upper cabinets. And so this is the drawers, and this whole box itself will just slide into the upper cabinet, and you have these drawers for usage. Now, these are designed in a couple different ways. You'll notice there are no drawer slides or guides. You don't really need them. You build it nice and tight. They fit in here nice and flush, because the cabinet door is going to be closed on top of this. So we don't have drawer pulls that extend out. We have recessed drawer handles. Because these are made with the purpose of being able to extract the drawer, to have a kid's storage or a project box where you can take, remove, go do your project, and come and put your drawer box and supplies back in. So let me show you what we have and how we built this. And this is nothing but some plywood, cut very simply, stacked on top, glued together parallel. And this is the face of the back and the front. And we put some edge banding of unnecessary walnut on the front of this to match the countertop, which is going to be a 9.5 foot slab of walnut for the countertop. So now let me show you how we actually build these drawers. First thing we did is select a piece of walnut to cut our true drawer faces, so we have the continuous grain flowing for the bottom drawer and the top drawer. Then we take those two guys and we tape them together in such a fashion, and we cut on the bandsaw this and sand that so it's nice and smooth. So now that we have our front, we have out of oak our two sides. So with our front piece, we'll have one side here, second side here, and we just cut the back out of some inexpensive poplar, and we cut our little groove in here to hold for strength our back section. So now what we need to do is come in here and cut the edge on our drawer face that'll look like this. And so this is the edge that we need to cut. So this will be recessed, so we don't necessarily want to have this exposed to the front. It'll be half the width of that. So let's get this cut. First thing we're going to do is measure the width of our board. In this case, we're going to use millimeters, because it's a little easier. And we're going to go down to 9, about half that, to set the depth of our blade. So now we're going to come over here and raise our blade up to half the width of the thickness of this to be able to cut our grooves. So I want my little edge cut to be exactly the width of this, because the edge of this drawer is going to fit flush to the inside of the box, or with about 1/8 of an inch play in there. And put this up here for reference on that side. Put our actual piece that for width that we cut here. So now we know that this line right here is the width that we need to cut for our groove to be able to match our little dado. So once we have the back face marked, we're going to put a little mark on the edge. So we put it on the table saw. Actually, we're going to run it through this side, so we'll need to put it on this side as well. Okay, to prep for this cut, I have my fence moved over, I'm using my miter gauge for my pushed, and I'm going to line up this line right there on the edge of where my tooth is. I'm going to cut it. Now we're going to test our end pieces to see how they fit, and that's perfect, right on the money here. So this is nice and flush. So if you have it to where it's a little bit proud, you go back and cut this a little bit more. Check the other end. Right on the money. So the little lip comes from there. So that's a good cut. Okay, so now let's put our drawer together. And we have this done in that fashion there. And that little clamp we'll put on the back end to hold this into place. Now you say we're ready for glue up. One thing we have yet to do, and that's to have a plywood bottom in here. So this is the drawer, and the bottom looks like this. Our plywood bottom is recessed to be equal or a little bit inset from the drawer box. And so for each of our pieces, we'll need to cut another dado that's going to be exactly the width, or maybe a millimeter more than the width of the plywood. So now we're going to cut that. All right, so I set my calipers to 0. I measure this and I get 4.995. So we're going to cut our width of this to a smidge, half a millimeter over 5. As I lower my saw blade, you'll notice that I have a red line marked on my face plate here. That is the very peak of the blade height, and that's where I always use that to measure, in this case, my 5 millimeters for my height of my next cut. So that's a pro tip for you to be able to know exactly where you need to take your measurement for blade height. As I'm preparing to cut my dado for my plywood bottom, I always want to come in and say, all right, what side am I making the cut on to make sure I cut it in the right spot. So when you take your pieces over to your table saw, you don't want to cut the wrong side. In this case, it would not make for a very happy camper, because you have these pieces already lined up. So we got that. This one's going to be a little easier because you know where that one's going because of the handle. But nonetheless, let's mark it anyway. Because we're going to cut along this line in this fashion with this edge up against the fence, we have to cut this exact width, which is flush to the edge. So we're going to have to put a sacrificial fence on here rather than risk cutting our fence. So this is my sacrificial fence. I just have a couple of grooves cut in here to receive my match fit dovetail clamps. And these guys will go in here like this. Tighten those guys on. Pretty simple. And then I can move this fence all the way over to the edge of the blade and actually inset it if need be to cut this edge that's going to be right up against the fence. So that's how we're going to get this edge cut safely. So I'll leave a link below for these match tail dovetail clamps. There's many uses for them. This is one of them that makes it very easy to create a sacrificial fence. Since the rabbet I'm cutting is about 1/4 of an inch wide, which is a little bit more than the width of one saw blade, so I have to do this in 2 different cuts. So once I make one cut, I'll move the fence over just a smidge to be able to cut it from the middle of the cut all the way to the edge of the board. That way, you get it nice and smooth. Your pieces and you assemble them, you can see this edge cut right here all the way around, and that's what it should look like as far as the edge to be able to cut your plywood. Insert this piece of plywood in here. It doesn't fit the whole box, but you should see the corner, so it's just a fingernail below the edge of that, which makes for a perfect depth. Now we're ready for our drawer glue up. So I like to do this upside down because that will make the top edges flush when we glue it up. So when we're looking at this, basically all we're going to do is be gluing the corners, and then we'll clamp it. So here we go. So I've been using recently this newer glue from Titebond. It's called Thick and Quick, and it doesn't run, and it's perfect because it dries clear. So if you're using a glue and you need to have something that dries like a drawer, you know it's going to be seen, and you're trying to get it nice and in the spot without running, as when you turn these to glue them up, that's what happens. Glue will get everywhere. And so with this, I found that you really don't have the run on the glue that you normally would with Titebond 1 or 2. And also because it's dries quicker than the other, I should be able to come back in today and go ahead and work on the drawer some more. Why are we making drawer boxes? Instead of building the drawers actually in the upper cabinets. Well, the project manager, aka Philip's wife, was concerned we weren't having enough drawer space. And so it's a change order. It's after the fact. We already built the uppers. Now we're going to add more storage with drawer boxes. Now we got the glue all done. Let's check some final measurements for square. Everything's square. Now let's leave it to dry. Whoop, that was quick. Okay, so now we want to measure our drawer bottom opening to see about our actual measurements for our length of the drawer. So this is going to be 14, and that's going to be 9/16. 14 and 9/16. So after we get the measurements of plywood cut to size, put a little glue in, slap it in, and put some clamps on it, we're done with the box. So here we are the next day, and now I have a coat of finish, the first coat of finish on our walnut face frame and our drawer fronts. Here's what it looks like before finish. So I'm using the General Finishes Armor Seal, a oil-based polyurethane, and this will go here. It really enhances the walnut, and that's something you want to always consider when you're adding the finish. And so we'll put a couple more coats on this, and we'll be done pretty soon. So here are the drawer fronts. We get them all finished up and ready to go. Here are the drawer boxes with the coat of finish on them. And here's the cabinets that we're putting our drawer boxes in. And here's the cabinets in their permanent home. So enjoy this. Here we go.